And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Rosalia Quintana, who had a near-death experience and spoke to God, which we're going to learn about and more. Rosalia, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, if you don't mind, let's start on the day that you died and go from there.
Absolutely. So I was camping in California in a beautiful night sky, and just it was any other night for me. I didn't think anything of it. I went to sleep, and at some point, I was standing outside the camping ground, and I started looking around, and I could see sacred geometry all around. I thought I was dreaming or something of that sort. But there was a point where I started to get very scared. Like something was wrong, was not right. And when I started to really freak out was when I went to touch my body and I couldn't find it. I couldn't touch anything. And I was like, oh, no. Something's happening here. And then as soon as I had a thought, oh my God, did I die? I was pulled into this vacuum-like feeling that I couldn't escape it. And I was pulled into this void or this darkness or this vastness that it didn't have any light, pitch black. And it was very scary for me. I was like, okay, what's happening? You know, I didn't understand anything. And I was extremely scared and just panicked because I couldn't understand what was happening. And I started to feel a lot of sadness. I felt like I didn't want to be dead. My mom, my kids, this cannot be happening. I have stuff pending to do. This is not right. And I started facing all of these fears started coming forward for me. Shame, guilt, and it almost felt kind of like hell loops going through. I would face the fear and I would die, and I would come up again, face a different fear, die again, and keep facing different fears. And to me, it was excruciating, like just the amount of pain and suffering I felt during this whole entire process was very difficult for me, very humbling experience. And there was a point where I just couldn't take it anymore. Somehow, even if I didn't have a body, I just felt very, very tired, like of fighting almost nothingness, which is very weird to explain. But I know I didn't like it. I didn't feel, safe, or it wasn't, a loving place. It was very, very hard. So there was a point where I was just extremely, extremely tired. I started calling for help, for God. God, please help me, come and all of these things. I kept praying and praying and praying and praying. That's all I couldn't think of anything else to do but to ask for help. And I don't know how much time had passed because it didn't feel like any time or any place. But at some point, after what felt like a long time to me, I was brought into this sphere of some sort. So this sphere, I don't know if it's like an electromagnetic field or similar to a flower of life, like it had a bunch of geometry just moving around, or I don't know if it was, to me, I guess to my limited awareness, maybe the inside of the earth or something similar, just inside of a sphere of some sort. And God came forward, a form of God, I say, came forward for me. I guess a form where I would feel safe and I would, be able to recognize it as God for me. And unfortunately, instead of me being glad and just like, oh my God, thank God you're here, like, you saved me or something like that, I started cursing at God really, really badly in Spanish. I was just like, all of this is your fault. I'm not ready to die. And I started asking all of these existential questions I had, like why the cancer, why the poverty, what, like just all the bad stuff and rage and anger and stuff I had inside me. Like I just wasn't happy with the way creation was made. Um, and I had a lot of resentment toward God, lots of it, a lot of anger. There was a point God did not reply a thing to me. No anger. I didn't feel judgment or anything, just a lot of stillness. At some point, God placed his hand on my shoulder. And at that point, that was it. I completely melted into this love, this bliss, this oneness, this I was every everything and everyone, just like an immersive love. That's what I would say. Um and I felt total peace, like everything was okay. Like my questions almost as if they were answered all at once and everything was okay, which is really hard to comprehend. And I couldn't bring the answers to my own questions back, except that, I don't know, it's part of a greater plan, if you would say. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but at that point, at least, I was at peace and I was engulfed in this beautiful love. And at some point, God started showing me almost what it looked like to me, like a hologram in front of me, but I could feel. So it was, to me, it was different lives that I've had. So I was male, I was female, I was from every religion, from every continent, just like so many lifetimes of learning different things. And I could feel what kind of like what the lesson for that lifetime was, but it was just this feeling, this knowing of what it was. And at that point, I felt just like, oh my God, how could I ever judge anybody? We're just learning. You know, it brought me down to it's been the biggest love and compassion I felt so far for anything. It's like very difficult to put into words, but it was the feeling of not judging the journey, because things I would say, oh, I would never do that. I've done it also. So yeah, just having a lot of love and forgiveness for myself and for others. And just seeing how I would say maybe love is the common thread, regardless of the what seems like separation. It felt like everything was just one. It didn't feel like this separateness that we perceive here. And I just felt like at one with everything. There was no separation between me and everything that is the cosmos, between me and God, between me and nothing. There was just oneness and pure love. I guess that's the easiest way I can describe it. And I was shown my life review, and it was sad. It had sad moments, you know, where I wish I could have done things differently, and it wasn't from judging or from having to do. I just wished I could have acted differently. From me, my own wanting, and I don't know. I just had this yearning, like if I could do it again, and I wanted to be better if I had another chance to do this again. And I could see how before incarnating, I chose my parents. I chose my place of birth. I saw myself together in a circle with my family on my dad's side, and how we agreed on different lessons we were going to teach each other. And I did not have the best relationship with my dad at that time. So to me, if I had not seen that, that really changed my relationship with him to this day. It has improved greatly just to know that a lot of these, you know, trials and hardships in our relationship, a lot of it is there to teach me something at I guess, a bigger level that I am not able to comprehend, and in this little micro perception that I have, you know, from where I was standing at that point. So just being able to see that, it was like, oh wow, Like, thank you. It's really hard to grasp that, especially when they're harder lessons. But I was very grateful to see that, to be able to see that. And then the life review extended to what it seemed like I could see myself writing, kind of signing a book. And I had never written a book in my life. And I had no idea I was ever going to write a book, or I was ever going to come back and continue to do more work or anything like that. But I did see that. I saw myself signing a book. I'm like, that didn't happen. But whatever, I don't know. That question didn't really arise. But I guess I had a thought that hadn't happened. And I could just feel this love. There's no other word but love that comes to mind, that I felt just throughout the entire, expanded through the entire existence. Just love for everything and for everyone. And then at some point, I came back. I came back into my body, and it was morning already. And when I woke up and I saw the sun for the first time, it was just magical to me. It was like being alive is a miracle. Like before then, for years, for like 7 years, I was trying to wake up with gratitude. I could never reach that point. I mean, I could fake it. I could do affirmations and try to be grateful, but I wasn't feeling it. Not to that extent. And I wasn't given a choice, to stay or come back or whatever. I was just back in my body. And the integration part of this was very difficult for me, like to understand what happened, why it happened, how does this relate to anything, like what just happened. So I reached out to everybody that I knew that was a teacher for me. Shamans, medicine, women's, Akashic record teachers, energy workers, just, psychologists and psychiatrists, because I also come from a healthcare background, to try to help me make some sense of this, like of what had happened. And I did a lot of integration work, integration work. And there was a very interesting message I got, which is, music is the answer. So I still don't know. I mean, I still don't know to the depth of any of that I went through, but that specific sentence stuck with me. Like, music is the answer. And I know how frequency is important and vibration and we're energy and so forth, but I don't really know the extent or the depth of that. Music is the answer. So I don't know. It's almost like I'm just really grateful to have gotten a second chance to be a better version than at least what I was. All that anger, all that rage I had inside of me, that it was there because it showed up. I just maybe was not as aware of it. So just being able to serve, being able to look at life with a lot more curiosity in the journey. I don't have as many questions as I did before. I just like, no, I don't. I'm okay. I'll just kind of like learn as I go. I don't really want, all of this hunger for answers that I had before. I'm like, I'm all right. Let me just live what is, what comes up in the now moment. I'm a lot more present, and a lot more grateful. Yeah. So that's a little bit about what happened.
Rosalia, thank you for sharing your experience with us. Before we unpack it, can we go backwards a little bit, and can you give us a little bit of your backstory and what do you think caused you to leave your body?
The only sensations I remember feeling was extreme hot, but like burning, like fire, and extreme coldness, like my inside my bones were cold. Like I've never felt anything like that. So sensation wise, that's the only thing I felt before that experience happened. Health wise, the only thing I was having issues with was my pituitary gland. Other than that, everything else was fine. I did get checked afterwards. Everything came back negative. So, because I thought, well, maybe something's happening here that I'm not aware of. Um, but health wise, that's all I could tell you that I was having issues with.
Were you going through some sort of spiritual crisis or something?
Oh, I'm sure I was in my dark night of the soul for sure. I was probably swimming all over that. Yeah.
All right, when you first left your body, you said that you saw sacred geometry.
Mhm.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I say sacred geometry because it's very similar to, I guess, the patterns of like the flower of life or similar to that stuff. I can't tell you exactly what they were. I don't really have any background or, knowledge of what these things are, but it was all sorts of mandalas and geometry all around the place. So I'm not really sure what they mean or how to interpret those, except for that there's energy, that maybe just our five senses can't pick up on.
I believe some of my guests, when they were out of their body, saw something either in the sky, I guess it was in the sky, that made them believe or think that we are in some sort of simulation. Have you thought about that?
I have. So I did see an electromagnetic field covering the entire thing. I could tell you that. So very much could be. I wouldn't totally disagree with that.
Can you give us a description or two of what you saw when you were going through the loops of hell?
Just pure darkness. That is it. Nothing else. And then the scenarios that were coming up for me were very, not just emotional scenarios, because I did go through a lot of that grief and that stuff, but I was confronted with, I guess, what I could call all types of monsters and things that just seemed very scary, right? For me, and I had no idea what was happening. So just a lot of scary stuff that I couldn't understand, in that pitch darkness where I didn't feel safe.
Many of my guests go to a place like that, which we call the black void. Have you heard of that? And does that make any sense to you?
Well, it very much felt like I was taking into a void and it was completely pitch black. So yes, it maybe just because I didn't have the spiritual maturity or awareness or the consciousness, I got pretty freaked out with it, kind of looking back, I'm like, well, maybe it was just a process of, I don't know, going through the dimensions and the different, but I had no idea about it. I've never had any type of experience like this in my life. So to me, it was completely just, it was very, very scary. That's the only thing I could tell you.
Have you written the book yet? Because you saw yourself signing a book.
I have. I've written two. One was a multi-author book, and then I wrote one just by myself. Yeah, so that was interesting. I did write that book. Yeah.
What is it about?
Becoming your own quantum alchemist master. It does go a little bit into my own journey, but pretty much it's just about that awakening process into ourselves, into that connection to the divine within. A lot goes into the alchemical process that we go through in life. All the crises and the trials and tribulations, really to forge that gold, that philosopher's stone. Just trying to change the perception on life a little bit, kind of like I feel a lot of the gift I was given was basically a new pair of lenses with new graduation. Nothing has become easier, but my perception, and I have a lot more grace, a lot more compassion, more patience, more forgiveness for myself, and therefore it just translates with other people. Like, how can I have more patience with me and not have it with you? I get it. We're all going through these struggles and this pain and this transformation. So it's just kind of looking at challenges from a different angle, at least.
You also discovered that music was the answer. Have you integrated music in your life in some fashion?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love music. I incorporate music into everything I do, into painting, into meditations, into breathwork journeys. But I feel there's just so much more to discover, with that one sentence. And I'm just like a child waiting to kind of see how the puzzle pieces I receive fit in, and then going around that spiral again and looking at it every year, like going, oh, okay, and then kind of revisiting that and revisiting and gaining more depth and more just from everything that happened.
Did you note that after your experience, you had any new abilities that could be considered psychic?
Well, I'll tell you this. Um, I was working with Akashic Records since 2018, and that really helped me, I guess, tap into my gifts. But after that, it really opened up. A lot of the clairs opened up a lot more. Like it's a lot easier for me to go into meditation, to communicate with my guides, with my higher self. Everything is just easier and with more clarity. Um, you know, kind of like that connection with your higher self, with that divinity within you. It gives you that, like, that inner compass to follow. So it's a lot more clear now.
Do you fear death?
No, no, not at all.
If you had a friend that was grieving over the loss of a loved one, what type of advice would you give?
Well, it would depend. If the person, there's a lot of factors into this, because, if somebody is not ready to dive into the advice I'm going to give them, it depends, like, do they have a regulated nervous system? How recently did they just lost this person? Where are they in the grieving process, and in the stages of grievance? So there's a lot to take into consideration. But if you feel that you're ready and you're up for the task, there's a beautiful exercise that I love to share, if that's okay. Just be really mindful, when if you hear this, if this is for you at this time, because it may not be. Okay, really sit with that. So a beautiful exercise that I love to recommend is, if you're familiar with energy work, always do your protection, ground, and do all that prepping before you go into the exercise. But it would be to imagine that there's a beautiful sacred space, whatever that may look for you. And there's two chairs, and you're inviting, it could be the higher self of this person or the spirit of this person, to come forward and sit in that chair and just have a conversation, as if it was, if the spirit of the person was able to come through. Sometimes they come through right away. Sometimes you have to practice several times, and then they'll show up. Sometimes it may not show up, and you may just be imagining yourself sitting in the chair. What's needed for that relationship of those soul contracts for those people will happen, whatever it's meant, if it's meant for the person to come forward. And a lot of the times, in my experience, they've received so many beautiful messages that it's exactly what they needed to hear. And it's stuff that only very specific to that person and to their connection. So it's like a confirmation for them, that somehow they're still there, they're still with them, in a way. So it's really, really very beautiful. And another one would be to write a letter to this person, with anything you want to say, and go ahead and burn that letter in a safe place. That has, I believe, a lot. All of these exercises I recommend, I've done them many times, um, and for different reasons. And it's amazing how you feel afterwards. It's amazing the healing powers that it does have, if you open yourself to those possibilities, but only if you're ready. Sometimes we're not even ready to jump into that. It depends. It depends. But those are two beautiful ones that I would recommend.
Do you think there's an end point to returning here?
Oh, that's a great question. Do you mind if I sit with that for a second?
Not at all.
I don't have the answer for that, but what's coming for me is that it's a beginning, not an end point.
Well, you've had multiple trips here from what you mentioned, right? You've lived everywhere on the planet and met all kinds of people. Do you think there's a point that we graduate and go on to another planet, somewhere else?
Well, my human self would say I would hope so. But the truth is, I don't have the answer to that. I don't know.
Well, that's honest.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh, when, that experience for me, looking at that little tiny piece of the veil, oh man, that humbled me to my knees. It's like, I don't know anything. I mean, and whatever I think I know could be completely clouded by illusion and perceptions and programming and all of these things. So it's like, there's so much we don't know, you know? So yeah, hopefully a lot of what I love is that, for example, you're creating this space for us to share our truth, our journeys, our process. And we don't know how this is going to create a ripple effect and help another being right now in this moment, So maybe we don't have all the pieces at once, but once we all start kind of putting all the pieces together and sharing it, and it becomes more open and more, our awareness expands, our perception, and we can kind of at least navigate the journey a little bit better. Maybe it doesn't have to be as rough, or maybe a difficult situation. You have tools to navigate it a little bit better than if you didn't have that support system, or if you haven't heard that podcast, or if you hadn't read that book, that helped get you through it, or that friend, or, that word of encouragement. So I do believe in synchronicities, that I think the resources will come to us as we need it, right? Like that path will appear as you take that step.
Did you happen to see God?
Well, to me, it was a form of God. And I say that because my perception of God has definitely shifted after that experience. But to me, I did see it. It was a male in his 60s, short white beard. And maybe because I was raised Catholic, I guess, and who knows all the programming I had to perceive God as this entity, right? Um, but at least at that point, that's what I needed to see for whatever reason. To me, God is everything and everyone, everywhere. So, just I just appreciate that it happened, that I was able to have that experience, because it gave me hope not to give up on life, not to give up on myself, to I've been through a very, very deep depression to a point where I was suicidal. So to me, this experience, I could tell you, saved my life. I know it sounds kind of like, but it, it's the best thing that could have happened to me. I am another person thanks to this. I feel like I was born again and given another opportunity to look at life with other eyes.
How has your perception of God changed?
To me, I see it literally everywhere. My family, my dog. I see it in you. I see it in every person that I cross. I just see it as that chi, that prana, the life force that runs and animates everything. That creative force. I see it in my painting. I see it everywhere. So to me, I definitely feel like I'm never alone. Just feel like God is all around me. Like I had some health issues, not during that time, but afterwards, and I went to the hospital, and I kept looking at everybody, and I was like, these are angels. This is God in different forms, assisting me and helping me and making sure I'm going to be okay. And I just felt so safe in this universe, you know. So yeah, it's just completely shifted. I don't see it as one specific religion or entity or anything like that.
When you were choosing your parents before this life, did you sign any sort of contract?
I did not see myself signing a physical contract, but I'm sure somehow there had to be some sort of, agreement for this to happen, because I could see us together, kind of mentally, I guess, if you would say, or telepathically discussing all of this stuff that we were going to do. And it was all from so much love and so much wisdom that was coming from what they were going to do. And I was just so honored to receive that. So I did not see the actual physical contract or anything of that sort, but it very much does feel like there had to be some sort of contract and agreement.
Can you share with us how you access the Akashic records, and what are they like? Like books?
There are many different ways to access the Akashic records. There's two main ones. There's sacred prayer. You have an opening prayer and a closing prayer, and you have a meditation. And through the meditation, there are many different avenues, because as you know, when you meditate and you access, there are many different realms, I guess, and dimensions that you can access from within. So depending on the teacher that's going to teach you, and your own practice, is how you learn to access the records. So for me, when I teach the records, which is part of the Zebra method that I teach, which is a 90-day program. So there, when I teach it both ways. I teach it with a sacred prayer, and I teach it through meditation. And the meditation, I do several different ones, because what maybe works for me may be a little bit different for you. You may not be able to access through this type of meditation. So we try a couple different ones and see what sits right for you. Another way is with the opening and closing prayer. You can ask questions, literally. And you will see the difference with your Akashic records open versus when they're closed, the type of information that flows down and the type of answers that come through. So you will, with practice, you will learn to work more with the records. So to me, the records really is just, especially the way I teach it, I don't teach to access another person's records, because to me, I'm very careful with the free will of another being. So I don't like to go into that. But for yourself, I do like that aspect. To me, it's just, getting to know yourself at a deeper level. And if that's there to help, try it and see how it feels for you, if it feels right or if it doesn't, if it's a tool you want to keep exploring or not. So I just do it with a lot of like just self-introspection and receiving guidance from my guides and things like that. I don't use it for anything else.
During your near-death experience, you saw a part of your future by signing the book. Have you seen anything else, and or have you ever seen any future events in the Akashic records?
Future events is something I don't like to get into, the Akashic records, because to me, many different realities exist at the same time, which is kind of weird. And energy is shifting depending on our free will and our decisions. And it's just so many factors. I don't like to do that. But what I do like to do is, I guess you would say, receive information about different aspects or pieces of my mission and different things. So different little pieces come here and there that slowly they start piling up. But I don't go into, a lot of future stuff. I just personally I'm not interested in it.
What would you say your mission is?
Oh, that's beautiful. It's called the Blue Butterfly Mission, which you guys can check out more. But in regards to that, it's really just reminding humanity to connect to their heart. I mean, there are many different aspects to the mission. Like I have a world peace treaty on change.org. It includes many different moving aspects of it, and working a lot with nature. I use my art as an artivist to advocate for Mother Earth, biodiversity conservation, human rights, and mental health awareness. So just being an instrument for change, for unity, to bring us together, to collaborate, I always just think about my kids, and say, what is the kind of world that I want to leave to them? And whatever I could do to make that, even if it's slightly better, I'm usually all in for that. And for example, the Blue Butterfly Mission continues to morph, right? Depending on my own journey and where I'm at. So I've been diving a lot into art right now. So the way that has morphed into has been doing workshops that are poetry, art, and personal development in the community. That brings the community together. We feel better. We tap into our intuition. We bring forth ideas and collaborations. So it's really just to, as I walk and as I take this step, try to make a positive change with everyone I come across in my environment. And yeah, really the main idea is reminding humanity to connect back to their heart. To me, that's where a lot of the change will come from.
Are you a painter?
I am now.
You are now. Have you painted any elements of your experience?
You know, to me, all of them are elements of my experience, because what I feel when I paint is that's my way of communion with the divine. I just feel like I'm one with God as I paint. So maybe for somebody who's going to church, or for someone's playing an instrument, or for someone is dancing, I feel in that flow state when I paint. So to me, I think it has all of the elements.
Is your art posted online where people can check it out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where can they see it?
RosaliaArtivist.com.
All right, cool.
Thanks.
Do you have anything that you're working on that you want people to know about?
Yes, I'm working on a 4-day somatic alchemy journey. It's a free program. And to remember how to listen to the wisdom of our body, and how to alchemize all that stored trauma, that dysregulated nervous system, how to come back to center, and hopefully create new ideas and birth new things from a safe place. So they have that program that they can find it on my Instagram at Quantum Alchemist Master.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that? And if so, should they do that on Instagram?
Absolutely. Yes. Instagram is fine. You can DM me right there. It's fine.
Before we wrap it up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Absolutely. And this message I received from plant medicine. It is transfer all your senses to the heart.
Rosalia, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff. A pleasure.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.